Greetings. I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. I am so grateful that you are here with us. I hope you know that you are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated just as you are. Welcome back to bonus episode number 2 with Sadiya Sassine, Matt Garcia. So we recorded these episodes all in one go. We were like, no, we're only going to need to do part 1. Let's just make this real quick. And then we talked for an hour and 15 minutes. So we are turning this into a 2-parter. Anything y'all want to say before they jump into the edits of where it's going to start off? Anything y'all want to tell them, warn them, encourage them, anything like that?
Ready, go deep, and definitely get up close and personal with ourselves and with your podcast host, Earl.
I feel like this is just an opportunity to say that we recorded this all at once. But then I don't know how we incorporate the everything everywhere. So it was a half-baked idea. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. Yes, we're definitely, that's exactly what this was for, to create a intro because we recorded it in one sitting. So that's exactly what it is. So we'll get out of the way and jump right into it. Here we go.
Did you have any other insights about everything everywhere all at once besides the infinity connection?
Well, I think it's the all at once part. That's the other part for me, the all at once. Because if you think through things like we hear spiritual teachers say that all we have is the present moment, right? That when you think of the past, this isn't just spiritual people, but they say like your emotions, what you're feeling right now, changes how you view the past. This is just something we know in terms of psychology and behavioral sciences, that if I'm sad, when I think about my past, I'm going to see it through the lens of being sad, and I'm going to interpret things differently, right? Even Inside Out, the kids movie, showed us that it changed. How you feel now changes the way you remember the past. And tomorrow I could feel like super happy and I'll think about the same memory and I'll experience it differently. Like I'll remember it differently. So most of the memories that we have that we've carried with us for years now aren't actually what happened because they've gone through so many different emotions and life changes, interpretations. Like it's a fiction. In the end, it's a fiction. And in the future, whenever I think through the future, it's always a fiction. It's my imagination. Your imagination, though brilliant and creative, is fiction. It's not real. It's not as is. The only thing that is real is right now, this moment. And so if infinity exists, it can only be in this moment. So everything everywhere can only be true if it's happening all at once. So like in this very now is the infinite times. It's not like I might in the future or I have in the past. It's like right now, right? And it's like, okay, then if that's the truth, then to me, it becomes like, then the content of my life doesn't matter as much as I think it does. And I think that takes away a lot of identity, right? Well, I've worked so hard to be Tom Earl, the dad, and Tom Earl, the podcast host, and Tom Earl, this thing. And so if you're telling me in this moment, I have failed in all of those things, and I have done better than I am right now, right? That like always there's this fluctuation and endless variations of who I could be and who my identities are, then I kind of have to conclude that it doesn't matter. So then like what does matter? I don't know. But that's like, but it's clearly not as in like the content of what happens in my life and everything I stress about and stay up late at night trying to control and influence and get to be this certain thing and level of ease. And like, well, there's always a part of you that has it easier and there's always a part of you that has it harder in this moment. So it clearly that's not the lesson of why I'm supposed to be here. I try to make life easier or less hard. What it must have something to do with, I don't know. The only thing I'm at right now is just accepting it, you know. And it's like, and it feels like this fine edge between apathy and full on loving acceptance, you know, because if it doesn't matter, then that sounds very much like apathy. But to me, it's like, I just got to trust because clearly anything could happen. And I think that's supposed to be like the breaking point. Like, I think it's supposed to break the mind. Like, I think my mind is supposed to break on it. Like, there's no way I can comprehend this. And so I have to then let go of the mind. Like, I have to stop trying to live through intellectual abstraction and comprehension. Like, it has to, so what's beyond the mind? And I think it's some sort of like feeling doesn't quite describe it. It's like even beyond a feeling. It's just this. And I think like you really start to hear it when you hear like though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, because you're just like, whatever. It's all happened. It's been worse. It's been better. It's not about what happens next. It's just about I am held. I am held, and we are all held. And if your infinity is my infinity, I've probably been you and you've probably been me. So like, I don't know. I'm kind of at this, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of where I'm at.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that resonates with me on some level. That's really deep insight.
Well, to me, it certainly sounds like that is very abstract. So I'm very curious if y'all are like, that was really weird. Like, it wouldn't hurt my feelings, but it feels very like I think when you talk about things like this, it's impossible not to feel some sense of like insecurity, because it's so vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable thing to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, considering this is my first time joining your show, it's definitely something that I think a lot about, maybe a little bit too much. So I don't want to go into that too deeply at the moment, but at the very least, it is hard for me just because in so many ways I am kind of that control freak, if only just because, various past experiences in my life where have shaped me in such a way that I want to have as much control as possible. So to be faced with that idea that, not necessarily everything could matter, and that no matter what we do, things will just happen the way they're meant to. Depending on what day I'm having, I might be okay with that, or I could definitely feel a little bit more insecure, as you said. So, but it's definitely gives you food for thought, and I think there's something a little bit more liberating, because even if there is something bad that's going to happen, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just something that happens, and maybe even if it happens to you, the individual, that might be okay. Sometimes the pain or the conflict in our lives kind of serve as a crucible for something, something better. I feel like I'm learning that a lot lately. A lot of changes and working with that.
It's so interesting you bring this up, right? Because to me, my kind of, so I've been going through this big breakup period with the industry that I've been in, right? And a lot of like, it feels like, I put out for a long time like a gratitude of the day video, which I think is awesome and wholesome. But when I see myself as a speck in a huge system, there's like this huge push anytime you get into personal development towards happiness as the ideal, right? It's like, do this and so you can be joyful and happy and live your best life. And then usually like on the tail end of that is like, and be productive and like all these other kind of things that to me it feels like almost like I'm like, oh, okay. Like if I really think about it, like capitalism, like be cheerful, be healthy, show up to work on time, look like this, think like that, smell like this, make money, spend money, get other people to make money, spend money, like make sure you go into debt, use a credit card, take out a loan, buy a car, travel, don't think billionaires are awesome. Like, so I'm kind of like at this this breakup too with happiness as a goal. Like I've been literally like, what if for the rest of my life I am depressed every single day? What if that is my reality? What if I will never be happy again? Does that mean that I'm a failure? Does that mean that I need to like buy a course? Does that, and I'm like, I think that depression is as much a flavor of life as happiness. And they're both, when they're, you know what I mean? So it's like, so if that's a truth, like if that's an equation, then to me, I don't want happiness to be my goal anymore. I want acceptance and peace. That even if I am depressed, I don't want to add on to this layer on top of it that's like, and I shouldn't be, or this isn't where I'm supposed to be at, or I could be doing it better if I wasn't like this. But it's like, if I'm going to be depressed, let me at least not add on this layer of like, you piece of shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, and so fucking what? You know, this is what I am. And I think that there's just like so much of this burden that we all carry. I just feel like I'm starting to get a little hint of when we stop adding on this, like, and I should get somewhere else. You know, there's like nowhere else to go. You've been there. You've done that. It's like, this is it. I'm here. I've arrived. If I'm depressed, then that's what I am. I'm not going to try to fight against it or think I should not be what I am. You know, and I think it's so hard to resist that, because people want to hear you say at the end of it, like, you know, and going through that, it's just been the best life of my life. It's been really hard, but it's still been the best year. Like, they just always want you to add on some sort of optimistic, hopeful bullshit. And I'm like, this must be toxic if we all feel the need to qualify our sadness. You know what I mean?
I mean, honestly, it kind of reminds me of, you know, and I'm not, you know, trying to belittle any parents out there, but I always feel that I hear this common story of, oh, I'm so exhausted. This kid drives me crazy. But then I look at them and then, you know, it just makes it all worth it. And I'm kind of just thinking, they're like, yeah, but you're exhausted all the time. And, you know, I don't deny that it would very much be worth it. I feel like I've had that kind of experience looking at my dog where, you know, the other day she went through the trash and really like hits the shit out of me. Sorry, language. But, you know, and then the next day I just, you know, look at her and she's being all cute, wagging her tail. And I'm like, okay, I guess you're all right. And also maybe that is, you know, my qualifier, but it is a little bit odd to me of just having that, you know, that whole thing where, I mean, as someone who deals with depression, I'm not going to come out and say, and I'm so, you know, glad that I have it. Like, no, I feel that my life would be way better without it. But I think at the very least, it helps, you know, it's developed me in such a way that, you know, I'm looking at the world a little bit more differently. And, you know, with the thanks to, you know, things like therapy and whatnot, you know, I'm able to, you know, kind of just take care of myself when I need to.
Well, I would like to hard disagree with Tom. Although I do get what you were saying. But I think focusing on a little bit of a different part of the concept. I think for me, the significance of the negative emotions are the fact that they grow your empathy. At least in my own personal experience, when I feel super down or even depressed, in those moments, I'm like, oh God, like this is what it's like. God, this is what other human beings feel after a breakup, like you said. Like, I get the pop songs, I get what they're talking about. And it helps me feel more connected to other people at that rock bottom, horrible feeling level. I do agree with you that we shouldn't like make ourselves feel bad for feeling that way. And I still have to work on not having that mindset when I have negative feelings as well. But happiness to me is a good goal. Great goal. That's what I'm working towards. Maybe it's not like, you know, maybe it's about the journey. Life is about the journey. Yes, I said these cliches. It's okay. It's okay. So the goal is happiness, and the meaning you're taking from life is like what you're doing on the way to that goal. But I decided that when I was like 12 years old, the meaning of life. I'm like, oh, to be happy and to make other people happy. But maybe I don't know. That's my own personal, what I think would bring me satisfaction in life is having like more happy days, and also accepting the down days, but working towards happy days and helping other people have happy days.
I resonate with that. That didn't sound like a hard disagree. Sounded like I agree with some things and fine tune others. That, I think a hard disagree would sound a little different, but it sounded like we had some common ground. And
That's true.
And I hear you, but then I go to like, there are going to be times where the reality in which you're faced, it's impossible to be happy. It just is. But you can be at peace. You can be like sad and grieving and accept that this is the, be at peace with that. This is whether we want to call it that stage in your life, or, and I think like we can even bring in things like, and find gratitude and find little moments of joy. But even that just feels like that's what I guess I'm resisting is like needing to bring those things in, and I think a part of grief is not feeling guilty when you do have moments of serendipity and lightness. And I guess that's what I'm saying is if we're going to judge ourselves for the times we're down, that judgment's going to come with us into when we're happy, right? If we have this habit of judging a certain emotion, we're going to carry it with us into all of our life. So I guess that's what I'm not saying like you have to be this, but I guess I'm saying like, and if you're at a place in your life where it's impossible to be happy, then don't judge that it feels like it's taking too long or the goal should be to get somewhere else. I think that's when it becomes really hard. I think that's the judgment of like, well, I'm not living my goal because my goal is to be happy. And sometimes you're just in a life where it doesn't feel like you are going to be, that it's appropriate. Or
oddly enough, it reminds me of this passage from a book that I recently finished. It was the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami, and it definitely left such an impact on me. Like I kind of just meditate upon it often, but the idea is that when you go up when you're supposed to go up, and you go down when you're supposed to go down. When you're supposed to go up, you climb to the highest tower, and you reach that that pinnacle. And then when you're supposed to go down, you find the deepest, darkest well, and you just go there. And I think to your point, it also talked about not resisting that flow and kind of just, as you said, being more accepting of it. That's not to say that, something your life's going to crap, you kind of just lie down and take it per se, but at least be more at peace with it. And rather than, fighting it, saying, this isn't where I'm supposed to be, and becoming all indignant about it. I certainly have had moments where, when I was laid off, and having to move back in with my parents as a 30-year-old and 2017, it was kind of just this, I think I was definitely resisting then because I had this idea of this is not what my life is supposed to be. And, it kind of just fueled that depression from there on out. But then once, you kind of just accept the surroundings, okay, here's where I am, let's just call it the bottom. And then from there, I was in a more open and, thoughtful space to kind of start building up from there. And, I think approaching it with that mindset allowed me to, go on to bigger and better things. So, be a big one.
What do you think, Sadiya? From your hard disagree, my thoughts, Matt thoughts, has anything been solidified or clarified in what I'm sharing that brings something different to the way you think about it, or that you want to still kind of like have me think about differently from your perspective, or Matt to think about differently, or kind of throw into the space for us to both kind of chew on?
I think I agree with both of you about the not needing the judgment part of it. So not needing judgment on your emotions or your state of life, and just accepting where you are in that moment, and that's a part of the human experience as well. To me, that's where we all seem to connect. I think I'm just a little bit more idealistic than most people, or maybe more hedonistic, and I just like my happy emotions. And so I think we mentioned that in the last podcast too, but I'll reframe for forever to try and like see things in a way that's going to make me less unhappy. So,
and I think that's what I like about you, Sadiya, is I think for various reasons we both grew up very different. I love that your baseline is a much more positive one, and mine I tend to come from a more negative outlook. So having that to temper with some of my more gloomy dispositions, I'm very grateful to have you for that very reason. It helps me see things in more positive light. That's not to say that I'm trying to depress you, but it's more of like, hey, let's watch Schindler's List, But yeah, I do appreciate that about you. Gratitude.
Yeah. So we'll just add one more thing about where I think the disagreement is. I don't think I would be accepting of what if I was depressed every day for the rest of my life. I don't know if I would be judging myself there, but I wouldn't be like satisfied with that kind of frame. So that might be where I disagree with.
Yeah, I think I think it's a lot of this is also tied to just the pervasiveness of how we're conditioned to be like this idea of like, and I totally relate to it. Like I would always do something to like take the next step. Like if I couldn't do the kind of like like Tough Mudders or Iron Man or Iron Woman, like I would, or the Navy SEAL, like I would be the one to do one more push-up, and if it's around like what we're talking about now, like sadness or depression, like I would, even if I mentally felt like I can't get up, I would do one more push-up, right? And for me, I very much relate to that on a physical level. I like Ramadan, right? It's like, oh my God, one more day. Like literally, I feel like I have to go to the hospital, but I will do it one more. Like I like that. And I'm an eternal optimist. Like it's like, oh, a challenge. I eat challenges for breakfast. Oh, my business just failed. This is my favorite part of the day. Like I am like that. So that's me. And I've experienced in my life recently a bunch of loss and grief and challenges that there is no like gritting my way through. There's nothing extra I can do. I can't go to sleep any earlier. I can't get up any earlier. I can't do the extra push-up. I can't do the working out. I can't do a more therapy. Like there's literally nothing I can do. There's no extra push-up. The push-ups have been done. And it's really, really, really hard. And so then I've had to have this kind of like existential crisis where it's like, oh, but optimism and happiness. And then it's like, okay, so there can be times in your life that may not ever end, where you're just going to have this huge pocket of grief and sadness and angst, and it might not ever go away. So then what does that mean? Does that mean that like if the majority of the way you spend your day is in grief, does it mean then that you are the opposite of happiness? Like, and then it's kind of just shook me and like, okay, happiness in the end is fleeting. It's what makes it wonderful and scary. So it's not something that I can build my life around as a foundation, but I still want to enjoy my life. So how do I enjoy my life without it having to be through the lens of being happy? And I guess that's kind of like what I'm like trying to understand is when you get to experiences in your life that's like, oh my God, what does it look like to go through life having been through these things where happiness just doesn't have the same lens it once did, but you still want to feel like you're alive. You know what I mean? And I guess one of the answers I'm coming to is just like, well, happiness was fun, but maybe it was also a little naive, and I've lived some life, and I have to kind of come at it with a different objective. And I think like this level of acceptance of where I'm at is almost like the best I can do, but it also seems to be the most at peace I've ever been, even though a lot of times, maybe because it seems like such a stark contrast to my normal, like maybe lens people like to see me through. It seems so dramatic. Like, oh my God, even Tom's apathetic and feels like the world's ending. I don't know, but I appreciate y'all. This, it's interesting being able to talk about these things because y'all have great thoughts, you're great listeners, and then it gets me to think like, okay, let me try to clarify how I'm feeling. So it's wonderful getting to talk with y'all like this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for inviting us to have this talk with you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you sharing and being so open and vulnerable as well.
Of course. And that wasn't me trying to get us to conclude, by the way.
I think we're thinking about our dinner, so maybe
Okay.
we're get to the end. I do have so many more thoughts, but I think it might have to be edited.
Yes. Wasn't saying we neither had to go nor stay, but it makes sense if y'all like, no, that was perfect. We're hungry. It's 3 hours time difference to where you are. Okay, we literally did do section 2. So this is definitely a 2-parter right here. And we'll definitely cut it where we did, where I said, why don't we go into part number 2? Thoughts you'd like to share to end. So the way we do this is, first of all, where can the good folks out there reach out to you and tell you that they appreciate you? Where can they do that?
Ooh, I have definitely withdrawn from social media a little bit, but technically, I still dabble in Instagram every now and then, or Twitter if anyone's still on there. But you can find me at Garcity, Garcity.
Oh, that's great. I like that.
Oh,
Patreon.
like a tiered thing where you can be.
That's a Patreon. I don't have that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, no Patreon active at the moment.
I thank you for trying to promote me, but no, it is. I'm still trying to cultivate that entrepreneurial spirit. So
it's all good. Sadiya, you've been on here a bunch of times, but just in case, where can the good folks out there hit you up?
I would say Instagram at Sadiya Sassine, my first and last name.
Okay, perfect. So, what is your invitation to the folks listening? What would you like to invite them to do, to be, to think about, to consider, to evolve into? What's your invitation?
I think with all the craziness that's happening in our lives, I think it's, I want to use this opportunity to invite that madness, kind of going to the point of just kind of accepting it, not necessarily seeking it out per se, because that's another thing. But, definitely, if you're unable to exercise that demon per se, learn to dance with it and kind of just make the most of the discomfort. I kind of had this idea once where if you're going to be in hell, you might as well make yourself comfortable. So.
I like that. Boom. Sadiya, what is your invitation as your husband dances with the devil?
Follow it up. I don't know. I can't think of any. But okay.
Yeah, that's all good. That's all good. What is the Muse song that the good folks out there should listen to? How about we do that?
Ooh. what's the one? Oh my God. I'm so not with the new music, but my dad, when I went to Florida a couple months ago, kept on singing Titi Me Pregunta. So it's Bad Bunny. And I think it's called Titi Me Pregunta. So that was a fun one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome music recommendation. Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Were you going to plug a Muse song?
That's all I was ever going to do. That's all I will ever do.
Plug a Muse song.
Their recent album, they have a song that I've been really just jamming to, was Will of the People, and it just really gets my energy going, for sure.
I like it. My invitation to y'all is to reflect upon questions that are literally impossible to answer and be comfortable in that space that you don't have the answer. It's such a good ego exercise. You don't have the answer. And you also, this is mine, can't want people to think the answer is there is no answer. That's an ego trap right there. You're like, no, there is no answer. That's the answer. It's like, that's your ego. Even if people think there's an answer. Sadiya, Matt, I appreciate y'all. This has been amazing. And to all of those who are listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessing. Thank you.
One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.